more ugly stream. Just let's get into it. Anyways, let's see.
The number of new cases is starting to come down, he says, but for the blue one, for this city, it's back to normal.
So yeah, pretty much, let's say. Alright then.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
We're live, we're local, and we're Washington's NPR news station, WAMU 885. Coming up next hour on All Things Considered, President Biden has announced a ban on imports of Russian oil and gas.
That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable in U.S. ports, and the American people will deal with another powerful bill to improve war machine.
Alright,
Biden also acknowledged that this move will likely lead to further price hikes on gasoline in the U.S. The details coming up at the top of next hour here on WAMU.
let's get stuff going. Yeah,
Right now, on the Consider This podcast, COVID-19 inmate deaths in prisons, a closer look. Also, more about a little-known home rehabilitation fund in D.C. and what happens when it doesn't work. Listen now at wamu.org/considerthis, or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast app.
Alright, let's see.
Experts are warning that so-called strongman leaders are getting more and more popular. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is just the latest example of an authoritarian leader making a deadly call with little to no checks or balances. What happens when we shift away from democracy, and is there a way to shift back? Stopping the slide towards strongmen. Next time on 1A. Listen tomorrow from 10 to noon on WAMU 885 or online at the1a.org.
Support for WAMU comes from Amtrak Acela. With reserves leading and 83% less greenhouse gas emissions than a road trip, your next trip is just an Acela away. Tickets available at Amtrak.com. Epson Solar, serving homeowners and businesses in the DMV with solar energy systems and home battery storage systems, reducing utility bills and helping to combat climate change. More at ipsunsolar.com.
Let's see.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Melissa Chang. And I'm Sarah McCann. WNBA star Brittany Griner has been detained in Russia since sometime in February. The details are not clear, but the Russian government has accused the basketball player of transporting drugs into the country. During the WNBA's off-season, Griner plays ball in Russia. Here with us now to talk about this story is NPR culture correspondent Anastasia Solukas. Welcome.
Hi, Sarah.
The State Department has been telling Americans not to travel to Russia, of course, given the invasion of Ukraine. So what was Brittany Griner doing there in the midst of this crisis?
Well, there's a lot we're just not sure about, Sarah. Much of the basic info is still missing from public view. We don't even know when she was arrested, or if it happened during or before the invasion. We only know it was sometime in February.
And why was she detained? Have you heard anything from her since?
The Russian government has said she's detained for allegedly bringing hash oil and her luggage when entering the country. They've also released a video purporting to show her detainment. But at this point, the only public information is coming via the Russian government, so there are questions about whether these might be bogus charges. Russian state media has released a photo of what they say is her during her booking, but we don't have any other information on that.
Now, Griner plays center for the Phoenix Mercury. She's a 7-time WNBA All-Star, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. What do we know about why she might play for Russia?
Lots of WNBA stars head abroad in the off-season to make more money. So Griner plays for a team called UMMC Yekaterinburg. WNBA players make a fraction of the pay than the male counterparts in the NBA. WNBA salaries max out at around $500,000. So for a lot of players, it's the right financial.
Schools are going.
And what do
Good.
we know about Griner's team?
Let's see.
This is pretty interesting to note, Sarah. UMMC Yekaterinburg is owned by an oligarch named Iskander
Alright, so we
Mahmoud,
have everything
who has
looking
ties to Russian president
so
Vladimir
let's see.
Putin. And actually, members of Congress have named Mahmoud as a president
let's
of the
see.
sanctions.
And has there been any official response to this from the U.S., from Griner's teams, or from her family?
Griner's wife, Cheryl Griner, has posted a couple of statements on Instagram saying how much Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken referred to Garner, not by name, he said there were privacy concerns, but he pointed out two other cases of Americans
Let's go right ahead. Let's get some stuff done.
Now, Brittany Griner is black. She's a lesbian. Given her personal identity, are there any particular concerns about her safety?
There is a track record of significant racism in Eastern Europe, and the LGBTQ community in Russia says it's often harassed and discriminated against by the country's government. Just last month, the Russian Ministry of Justice tried to shut down one of the country's most active and prominent gay rights groups, the Russian LGBT Network.
That's NPR culture correspondent Anastasia Silukas. Thanks, Anastasia.
Thanks so much.
A lot of dog owners are paying attention to a recent court ruling in Norway. A judge there banned the breeding of dogs. Flat, smooshy faces can cause health problems, and an animal rights group argued that the breed is so unhealthy it amounts to animal cruelty. NPR's Lauren Summer reports on the growing debate over bulldogs. First things first, let's meet the dogs. Holly Children has 3 bulldogs at her home in Oakland, California. There's also Abby and Mojo.
Who I absolutely love the breed. I can't imagine not having one or 3.
Altogether, Children's had 6 over her lifetime, and she says having bulldogs means being a very involved owner, because the way they look can cause problems, like those wrinkles on their faces.
Because she has this big, wide, deep full, so we have to clean it almost every day because it gets affected.
That flat face also means the dogs have a short airway, so this is what some sound like after a few minutes of running. It's tough for them to cool off.
They cannot sustain heavy heat. We would never walk on if it was over 80 degrees.
Some dogs have such serious breathing problems they need surgery. One of Children's dogs had to have its nasal openings widened. Others have their soft palate cut back if it's blocking their airway.
In the face and in the nose, there's all this redundant tissue, extra tissue.
Dr. Eric Olstad is a vet and assistant professor at the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine.
How I describe this to patients is it's like moving from a 4-bedroom house with all the furniture to a 1-bedroom apartment, but you have all the same furniture.
Olstad says their compact bodies and large heads also make it hard for bulldogs to have parents.
They really can't give natural birth anymore. I have to do C-sections on these dogs, but the monetary incentive for these breeders is so high that they can justify these added costs. These puppies can sell for anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 per puppy.
Studies show that dogs with flattened faces have more health problems than those that don't. That's what prompted Åshild Roldsack, CEO for the Norwegian Society for the Protection of Animals, to bring a court case under Norway's animal welfare laws.
We say that the dogs are our best friend, but we're not the bulldog's best friend at all. You know, if this was your best friend, you wouldn't want it to have all these conditions. You would want it to have a better life.
The court agreed and said bulldog breeding is inherent and assets to bring in new genetic material and make the animals healthier.
Okay, then.
It's new breeders across the world. Jeff Ryman is president of the Bulldog Club of America, a group that determines the standard for purebred bulldogs. That's the rules about their look and temperament. He says their health issues are mostly due to irresponsible breeders, not the breed standard itself.
Changing the standard after 100 years is not necessary. We want to follow the standard. We want to encourage and educate those that don't.
Okay, so what do we do? Let's get less schools made.
Ryman says his organization has a list of health tests for breeders to use. But research shows that breeding out bulldog health problems may not be possible. That's because the dogs are so inbred. Danica Banish, a veterinary geneticist at the University of California, Davis, says the issue is to have a purebred dog, you can only breed it with other purebred dogs.
You can't introduce outside dogs into it. And so that really limits the genetic diversity that's available.
A recent study found that the bulldog gene pool may be too limited to eliminate all its health problems, even if all breeders try.
Yeah, I don't think it's the breeders themselves. They're not necessarily trying to breed unhealthy dogs. It's the breed themselves that are unhealthy, and there isn't much that they can do about it within the context of the purebred breed.
Getting rid of some bulldog health problems may
designate. Let's see.
Support for NPR comes from innovation and from aspiration, working to help people combat climate change with a credit card that lets them plant a tree with every purchase. One card, zero carbon. Aspiration.com/credit. Aspiration Financial LLC. From Data IQ, platform for everyday AI. To help organizations make AI part of their daily business. Designed to elevate people, teams, and companies. DATFIKU.
And they just keep coming. Wagons. Alright, let's see. Another one. Wow. Those traders. Peaceful good.
Investment minimums.
So if we have anything to export, let's see. So what do we have?
This is WAMU 88.5. I'm Jonathan Wilson. We've got national and local headlines coming up in a couple of minutes here on WAMU.
Let's see.
We will also have more All Things Considered, of course. Stay with us.
Guess we do. Okay, this way to have our crafts.
Offering fully accredited master's degrees, full-time, part-time, online, or in person. More at SCS.
Alright, and we also have a tools.
Capital One Hall in
Let's have some more tools. Let's get those exported.
Very special guest, Kristone Kingfish Ingram, April 2nd. Look at information at capitalonehall.com.
This is WAMU Washington. Your listener-supported NPR news station from American University in HD at 88.5 on your smart speaker and at WAMU.org. It's 7 o'clock.
As the Russian military continues its assault on Ukraine, President Zelensky makes a passionate plea on behalf of Ukrainian civilians. We'll have details on his speech to the British Parliament and the latest on Ukraine. For Tuesday, March 8th, this is All Things
Alright, let's get
Considered
those
from
scrolls exported nicely. Let's go right now. Let's do some stuff.
And I'm off the chain. President Biden bans U.S. imports of Russian oil, the latest move to punish Russia as it attacks Ukraine.
Let's see.
With gas prices spiking, how high could they go? Also, what South Korea's presidential election could mean for Asia's political landscape. And snowboarder Brenna Huckabee on her fight to participate in the Paralympics.
I've definitely taken a lot more time to just understand that my work is not wrapped up in a medal.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. In Ukraine today, civilians in multiple cities continue to face ferocious shelling from Russian military forces. In at least one area, some civilians were able to flee.
For days now, attempts to create safe passage zones for civilians have failed miserably as Russian shelling, renewed fighting, arguments over routes for the humanitarian corridors. The safe passage zone held up long enough Tuesday at one place, the besieged northeast city of Sumy. Witnesses say 2 convoys of Red Cross buses were able to leave the area, carrying several hundred Ukrainian civilians and some foreign students. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, however, says renewed Russian shelling in the besieged coastal city of Mariupol again stopped civilians from safely navigating the evacuation route there. The city has been under bombardment without power or water for more than a week.
Let's see.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the House will still vote on a bill to ban Russian oil imports to the U.S. As President Joe Biden announced his own executive action to do just that. Susan Davis has the report.
In a letter to House lawmakers, Pelosi commended Biden for announcing actions to stop the import of Russian oil and gas. Pelosi said the House will still vote on similar legislation to show bipartisan support for the decision. The House bill will also call for a review of Russia's access to the World Trade Organization and strengthen existing laws that would allow the U.S. to impose further sanctions on Russia. The House is punting on an effort to revoke normal trade relations status with Russia after the White House intervened and asked party leaders to hold off. But supporters say they still want to vote on that in the near future. Susan Davis, NPR News, Washington.
The leader of the far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys, was arrested today on a conspiracy charge. Where federal prosecutors say this is role in the coordinated attack on the U.S. Capitol last year. Enrique Tarrio wasn't there when the riot erupted on January 6, 2021. That's because police had arrested Charlie in Washington 2 days before the riot. Russian was vandalizing a Black Lives Matter banner at a historic Black church. Stock markets continue to slide after an incredibly volatile day as NPR Cable's early reports were still concerned about rising energy prices.
Yeah, let's get all that stuff out to eat though. And
let's see, S&P and the Dow are still in what's called a correction, down more than 10%. Stocks swung between gains and losses throughout the day, but caution remains after President Biden announced a ban on Russian oil imports. The announcement came on the same day gasoline prices hit a national record as oil prices continue to gain. Shares of several energy companies ended the day higher, including BP, ExxonMobil, and Chevron, closed up 5%. NPR News, New York.
The Dow dropped 184 points. You're listening to
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, which means they always put clients' interests first. Fisher Investments, clearly different money management. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Live from WAMU, I'm Jonathan Wilson at 7:04 in Washington, 46 degrees under clear skies. In local news, earlier today, D.C. Health lifted its universal mask requirement for schools and childcare facilities. But that doesn't necessarily mean students will be able to go maskless inside school buildings right away. D.C. public schools and charter operators may still choose to keep their mandates. D.C. Public Schools Chancellor Louis Farabee says his school system will keep its requirement for the time being. He says the system will determine next steps after talking with the community and teachers' union leaders. In other news, a Maryland Court of Appeals dealt the final blow to district boundaries drawn by the Prince George's County Council. WAMU's Amanda Michelle Gomez explains.
The Court of Appeals confirmed a lower judge's decision that the County Council's use of a resolution to redraw district maps was invalid. Instead, the council should have passed a bill. Prince George's County must now use the map created by an independent commission this election season. The council chair said lawmakers will comply with the ruling. The decision marks a win for residents who accuse the council of gerrymandering the proposal. For WAMU, I'm Amanda Michelle Gomez.
In the forecast tonight, expect rain after about 1 a.m. and we're at low 36 degrees. The rain will hang around for the start of the day on Wednesday.
Go ahead and let's cross the street.
The high tomorrow just near 41 degrees. Thursday, partly sunny with a high near 51 degrees. That is WAMU 88.5 News. For our newest local coverage, you can visit dcs.com.
Nicely. Let's see. Seriously. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Let's make sure we have enough confidence.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Sarah McCammon in Washington. And I'm Elsa Chang in Moscow. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky gave a passion speech today to Britain's House of Commons. He pleaded for global assistance for his country, even as Russia's military assault on Ukraine rages on. Meanwhile, the UN says more than 2 million Ukrainians have fled the country in the past 13 days, and children. NPR's Ryan Lucas is in Western Ukraine and joins us now. So, Zelensky delivered this address to the generals while he's still physically in Ukraine. Can you just tell us what he said to you?
Zelensky spoke for a little less than 10 minutes, and he described what Ukraine has had to endure since Russia attacked. Cities are being shelled, schools, homes, hospitals destroyed, and of course civilians being killed. He said Ukraine did not want this war, but he said it is fighting and it will continue to fight.
I'll say. Let's head down here.
And about Shakespeare, Zelensky is saying here, to be or not to be is a question that could be asked about Ukraine and Russian invasion. But he says it's a question that Ukraine has answered quite clearly. He says Ukraine will be, and it will be free. And the echo Britain's own wartime leader, Winston Churchill, he said Ukraine will fight in the air, at sea, in the forest, and fields until the very end. And he called on Britain to help in that fight, including by imposing more sanctions on Russia.
And Ryan, where do the battle lines stand right now? Like, how much is Russia advancing at this point?
The state plan on the ground hasn't changed a whole lot the past few days. In general, Russia is having better success in the south than in the north. Their advance on the capital of Kyiv, for example, remains for now, hasn't moved much in the past couple of days. The same can be said for the battle around Ukraine's second largest city, Kyiv. The fighting, though, continues to take a major toll on civilians in this country. The southern city of Mariupol, for example, is under siege. Kyiv and water residents say many other cities are facing similar challenges to one degree or another.
Well, there have been attempts in recent days to set up humanitarian corridors to get civilians out of cities that are under attack. Many of those attempts have failed. There was another try today, I understand, where a lot of
Russia's Defense Ministry this morning announced ceasefires for Kyiv and a few other cities, including Mariupol in the south and Sumy in the north. In Sumy, officials say that around 60 buses were able to get people out of the city today. I spoke this evening with a woman who lives in Sumy. Her name is Natalia Yasina, and she's trying to figure out what to do in the days ahead. What she's saying here is that she hasn't made up her mind yet whether she will evacuate. She says she has a 13-year-old son that she's responsible for, and so she's still trying to decide what to do. And it's not an easy decision. Most of these humanitarian corridors have come under fire. We saw that today, even in Mariupol, and civilians trying to get out after. So there's very little trust that Russia will open its fire. But the humanitarian situation, of course, in a lot of places is getting increasingly worse. So hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are going to have to make a choice. And now Russia is saying this evening that it will open more humanitarian corridors tomorrow in several cities. But again, it's worth repeating, there's very little trust among Ukrainians that Russia is good at its word.
That is NPR's Ryan Lucas reporting from Western Ukraine. Thank you so much for that.
Let's get all this stuff.
President Biden today banned U.S. imports of Russian oil and gas. It's a show of support for Ukraine that's rattling oil markets. Biden faced pressure from Congress to take this step, but he also had a warning.
Since Putin began his military buildup on Ukrainian oil, just since then, the price of gas at the pump in America up 75 cents. And with this action, it's going to go up further. I'm doing everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
NPR's chief economics correspondent Scott Horsley and national political correspondent Laura Wise in joining me now. Welcome to both of you.
Happy to be here.
Good afternoon.
Laura, let's start with you. The White House has insisted until now that it didn't want sanctions to affect global energy supplies. So what made the president change his mind and go ahead with this?
I think there were a couple things. First and foremost, there was bipartisan consensus in Congress. Republicans and Democrats both wanted to do this. And as you heard Biden just say, he was reluctant to do anything that would make gas prices go up for American consumers. And he also said he wanted to work in lockstep with allies to punish Russia. Today he said he understood that all the allies might not be able to come along with the U.S. and ban Russian oil completely. But he's decided to go ahead. He thinks that that will raise the price for Putin a little bit.
And Scott, are other countries likely to follow Biden's move?
It's hard to say. For the United States, it's a fairly easy step. This country wasn't buying much oil from Russia anyway, and a small amount would be buying and easily be replaced. Europe, on the other hand, is much more dependent on Russian energy supplies, both oil and natural gas, so any boycott there would be much more painful. Even if Europe doesn't formally ban imports in the coming days or weeks, though, you are seeing an effort by Europeans to wean themselves off Russian energy over a long term. Jeffrey, who's managing the Tough Lecture School, says that's a major shift for policymakers who've long believed that closer commercial ties with Russia would help to get
Alright, let's see.
I think that building bridges approach has been completely discredited now. And so now it's about energy security. It's how do I reduce the need for gas.
That could be bringing more liquid natural gas from other countries, more renewable energy sources, more investments in efficiency. It's not going to happen overnight, but we may look back on this and say Russia's invasion sparked a crash course in alternatives to fossil fuels.
Mara, the president in his remarks repeatedly put the blame on Russia for the high gas prices that we're seeing now. What can you tell us about the politics behind his messaging?
Well, I thought one of the most important political lines of the speech, you heard him in that clip you played, was he called this Putin's price hike. The president is trying to change the narrative around inflation. You know, this is the top issue for voters for the November elections. It's the biggest reason that Biden's approval numbers on the economy are so low. Of course, Republicans have been weaponizing this. They've been saying that rising prices at the pump are because of Biden. They've been putting stickers on gas pumps, a little picture of Biden pointing to the price with the caption, "I did this." So Biden is now saying, even though prices were on the rise before Russia invaded Ukraine for a whole bunch of reasons, now Putin is his foil, and he can blame Putin for the rise at the pump. Democrats think this has the potential to shift the ground of the political debate around inflation. Polls show that at least for now, large numbers of the public say they support a ban on Russian oil and gas, and they even would continue supporting it if prices at the pump rose. Now, what happens over time, when people start paying these prices week after week, we don't know. But there's no doubt that President Biden is now a war president. There has been a groundswell of support for Ukraine. People are outraged. They support this move to ban Russian oil. And Republicans are in danger of losing one of their biggest weapons, which is to blame Biden for high prices of gas. And they say it's all because he restricted U.S. energy production. Of course, today he went to great lengths to explain that's actually not true. There are thousands and thousands of permits issued to private oil and gas companies that are not being used in the United States.
And Scott, as drivers know, these are all-time highs for gas prices in the U.S. What's ahead for drivers?
Well, we may not have seen the peak yet. By the way, adjusted for inflation, gasoline is still considerably cheaper today than it was back in 2008, the last time the price topped $4. But look, this does hurt the overall inflation as high as it is. Amy Myers Jennifer does suggest that people want to stick it to Vladimir Putin. One option is some patriotic conservation. They could try driving a little less and turning down prices.
It's NPR's Scott Horsley and Laura Lineson. Thank you both so much. Teachers in Minneapolis, Minnesota went on strike this week for the first time in more than 50 years. The teachers say it's not just about money. After 2 pandemic years, they want more support for students and more resources to keep colleagues from quitting. Minnesota Public Radio's John Collins reports.
The Minneapolis Federation of Teachers says negotiations with the district stalled over their main issues. They want more mental health support for students, smaller class sizes, and raises that help retain educators from diverse backgrounds. Thousands of teachers rallied this afternoon after a morning of picketing.
Alright, let's get all these schools going.
Is a teacher at a Southside Elementary School. She says both parents and teachers have struggled during the pandemic and fears that the district is going to keep losing staff and families unless there are immediate changes.
Our kids have had less and less supports and resources as time has gone, as they need more and more support.
Teachers are also pushing to give raises for educational support staff like Jose Bedoya. The union wants to raise their starting salaries from $24,000 to $35,000. Bedoya says, like teachers, he and his colleagues play a critical role in their schools and deserve to be fairly compensated.
For the district to say that they don't have the means, it's an insult, I think, to the profession itself.
In a statement, the Minneapolis Public Schools superintendent called the strike disappointing, but both sides vowed to continue negotiations. The strike closed schools in the city and left parents scrambling to find childcare, although the district and city parks did provide some services. Nicole Mullen brought her 2 young sons to a protest in support of their teachers. She says it's even more important after 2 years of pandemic challenges that the district provide more resources to teachers and students.
They're important not just for Minneapolis kids, but for all kids. And we can't have the society we want if we don't have strong schools, healthy schools, safe schools, stable schools, places for our children to learn.
Across the river in St. Paul, the school day went on as usual. The St. Paul Teachers Union and School District reached a 10-year agreement last month. While it still needs to get final approval, union representatives say it will lead to lower class sizes and more support for students. Exactly what the Minneapolis teachers say they also want. For NPR News, I'm John Collins in Minneapolis.
You're listening to All Things Considered.
We're live for local and we're Washington's NPR news station, WAMB.
Good
evening, I'm Jonathan Wilson.
Get
Coming up in about 20 minutes, Florida lawmakers have passed a controversial bill that would prohibit discussions about sexual orientation and gender identity in public schools.
You know, there's a line of thought in our country right now that parents shouldn't be involved with what their kids are learning in school. I reject that.
Coming up, we'll hear from students and teachers who oppose the measure. That's in about 20 minutes here on WAMB.
News Hour from the BBC, delivering the latest news from the conflict in Ukraine.
These are just regular people who have found themselves on the front lines of violence.
From the people living through it,
The whole country is at stake. We really need help.
to its global implications.
It's an incredibly important historical moment for Ukraine, for Europe, and for the whole world.
News Hour from the BBC.
Listen to tomorrow morning or weekday mornings from 9 to 10 here on WAMU 88.5.
Support for WAMU comes from Geico, offering auto insurance coverage for cars, trucks, or SUVs, and providing 24/7 customer service.
What are we going to do?
More information on Geico.com. But prevent cancer healthcare in 5 days, a family-friendly event at National Park on Sunday, March 13th. Dogs are welcome. Registration information can be found at preventcancer5day.org.
Join us for the next meeting of the Diane Reed Book Club. That's on Friday, March 25th at 1 p.m. Diane will host a virtual conversation with Amy Bloom, author of In Love, a memoir of love and loss. Amy talks about her husband's diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and how they chose to say goodbye. Find out more and register at dianereed.org/book club.
Let's head up here.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Klaviyo, working to help brands deliver personalized email and SMS campaigns that drive revenue and create genuine customer relationships at KLAVRYO.com/NPR. And from Zoom, used by 500,000 businesses, a platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video, enabling real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Sarah McKenna.
And I'm Leslie Chang. In early January, as the U.S. was averaging over 500,000 new COVID cases every day, one person was optimistic about the pandemic.
I think the likeliest outcome for February and March is that we'll be in pretty good shape. This virus being milder than the prior variants could turn out to be very good news.
That is Dr. Bob Wachter, chair of the Department of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco.
Bloody
His
hell.
argument that in 6 to 8 weeks, the Omicron surge would be over, hospitalizations would be down, and the pandemic will have turned a corner. Well, it is now 8 weeks later, so we decided to call Dr. Wachter once again to check in. Hello.
Hi, Elsa. It's great to see you. Usually when people play a clip, it's usually something you got wrong, so that was kind of nice.
Well, let's hope we didn't get it wrong. I mean, I wanted you to back check your initiative. This season was all down to under 50,000 per day hospitalizations on the deaths at a time. But are we doing
Yes, I think we're doing about what I thought we were doing, which is amazing because COVID has been nothing but curveballs. I think as we thought about COVID and Omicron in December, we needed to understand 3 variables. We needed to understand how infectious it was, how severe it was, and how much it was the immune system. Once we understood that and saw the curve from South Africa and that quick up and quick down, I think the most surprising thing about the last couple of months has been how unsurprising it has been. Many people got sick and many people died, sadly. But once we got through that acute period, you had the vast majority of the American public that had protection either from vaccination plus infection, and in many cases from infection. So that leads us to being where we are now.
All right, I'll say.
Well, what are you seeing personally in your own hospital in San Francisco? Is the COVID case
The real problem is
absolutely. 6 months ago, we had about 125 COVID patients in the hospital.
Okay, that won't say.
A month and a half ago, we had maybe 20 to 30 patients in the intensive care unit. Today, we have 4. There's still COVID there. There's still people who are pretty sick with it. but it is nowhere near what we received a couple months ago.
Yeah, more depression. There's a lot of stuff going on. Let's see. Valuations actually going down.
Who are the highest risk can get them. If we get to a place where even people who are modest high risk, like older people like me, have access to pills, that puts us in a better place.
So, let's see, do I go into evaluation or something? I don't know. Let's see.
And they will go with you. So even people who got vaccinated, the vaccines didn't work, largely immunosuppressed people, the pill should work just fine. So that's a game changer. COVID will be in our lives in the future. There will probably be new surges. And so the availability, widespread availability of pills is a very big deal.
Well, you segued beautifully into my next question. I was going to ask for another prediction because there have been so many moments over the last 2 years where it felt like just when people were starting to get hopeful, starting to turn a corner in this pandemic, another wave of cases come, or another variant comes. Does this hope that we are both feeling right now?
Alright, let's see.
I think it does. I'm going to be careful because I know now that you take things and can come back again.
It's trade.
Yeah, I think it does. It really has the feeling that we have not seen variant worse than Omicron now over 3 or 4 months. We have this twist on the theme, this BA2, that may lead to minor surges because it's a little bit more infectious than the original version. But I think the next several months are going to be fine. I think we're going to continue to see lower caseloads, relatively little stress on our healthcare system. And obviously, the mother of all curveballs is the possibility of a variant that's better at its job than Omicron. And anybody who gives you a hard and fast prediction on that is lying to you. I don't think we have any idea what the probability of that is. It's not 100%. It's clearly not 0. And I think we just have to wait and see. So I'm pretty confident in the next several months.
Let's go right ahead. Let's get this.
Better. I really am not able to make any kind of prediction about the fall because it really hinges on whether they do new variant.
Well, as someone who was double vaxxed and boosted and got COVID last December, in these next couple of few months, I'm going to start eating indoors without a mask.
I think you can, and I think you should. I think you should enjoy yourself.
That is Dr. Bob Walker, the chair of the Department of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. Thank you so much for
Get everything on board.
What a joy. Thanks so much.
The International Press Corps in East Africa has lost an important colleague. Jose Luis was a Spanish-Mexican freelance photojournalist based in Kampala, Uganda. She stood out for her dedication to stories in Uganda and elsewhere that don't get a live coverage, and for what she brought to the stories herself. Last night, she died in a car accident. NPR's Peter Peralta brings us this remembrance.
Luis covered the war in South Sudan, Uganda, where suicide bombers attacked last year. She ran to the scene. This is a tough, chaotic region, but Sigourney's photography always felt intimate. As she explained in the video for the Coalition of Women in Journalism, maybe it was because she was a woman.
We're hard as nails, you know, and we also have this empathy, and those two things make a really touching, very personal account.
Michael O'Hagan, a journalist, confirms that Sigourney often dressed all black.
She had a luminous cast out that invited people and was interesting so that people would share the most physical moments.
Some of Sigourney's photographs were iconic in the region. She photographed rebels getting ready for battle in South Sudan, Ugandans bloodied by security forces, and small moments. The opposition leader hugging his children, women backstage at a beauty pageant. She caught the moment Stella Nyanzi, one of the Ugandan government's most vocal critics, lost consciousness as police dragged her out of a protest. Sigourney's friend, Michael O'Hagan again.
People wanted her to be with them in those difficult times.
In Uganda, there are a lot of
Alright, let's see.
Thanks for a 40 smile when delivering punishments, and always seem to stop just short of killing you. As journalists, we focus on the way the risks of leaving through Kampala as columns of military men ready themselves for a crackdown. or the risks of getting caught in the opposition leader's house just after security forces had broken through fences. When it came to that, Sadurni was fearless. But as O'Hagan notes, what her death shows us is that life is much more fragile than that.
That's today's tragedy, that it was in the most unexpected and ordinary circumstances that she was killed.
Sadurni was driving to an assignment when a truck crashed into her car. She was 32 years old. In Alta, News, Cape Town.
Alright, there we go. Alright, well then, let's see.
This is News.
A family from Maine was trying to adopt 2 orphan brothers from Ukraine. The children hadn't even come to the United States for visits.
And when I saw that love and compassion and connection between those 2 boys, I think that's when I adopted them in my heart.
How did you think their prospects when Russia attacked? Their story in the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Listen tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 here on WAMU 88.5.
Support for WAMU comes from Innova, Northern Virginia's only health system offering proton therapy. Its proton centers pro patients.
Still getting this call.
Plus excellent oncologists and surgeons. More information at innova.org/pro-patient.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Sarah McCann.
And I'm Elsa Chang. As Russia continues its attacks on Ukraine, there are fears of possible further aggression.
They have just about 4,500 nuclear warheads in their military stockpile they could actually use.
But what wouldn't use them? Nuclear security
Alright,
experts.
some migrants. Yay. Okay, some migrants.
NPR News in Washington, I'm Lisa Johnston. President Biden has announced that the United States will ban oil imports from Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine. Speaking at the White House today, Biden called the additional sanctions a powerful blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
This much is already clear.
Okay, it's good that we're getting more immigration. That's great. It's truly amazing. That's what it is. So we need more immigration. We also need more stuff over here. Let's see. Stop spamming.
Biden acknowledged that his decision will likely come at a cost for Americans, especially at the gas pump. The price for regular gas in the U.S. on average now stands at $4.17 per gallon. A coffee shop owner in Kentucky, whose family was forced to leave Ukraine 40 years ago, is using her business to help people in her homeland. Nice. Are with Member Station that UK1 has more.
Ulrika Kopex was 10 years old when her parents and siblings fled Ukraine just before the fall of the Soviet Union.
We were refugees. We came as persecuted Christians.
Kopex is the owner of Brotherly Coffee Company in Lexington, Kentucky. She says their mission statement is to give back. With the help of Lexington Priest, Jim Sisho, who picked up all the tabs. Today's profits will go to a mission that is buying supplies for families stuck in war-torn Ukraine.
Mom needs to be on the first part of your Caitlin meeting.
Alright.
Let's help you with the laying stuff out, okay?
Okay.
Does Zoom work on your machine?
So, yeah. Oh, wait, no. We need to switch what I'm doing. But yeah, I would need to switch boot.
Metro's board will
Boot
not
Windows.
its independent inspector general. task force that investigates fraud, waste, and abuse.
Well, I would say
WMU's transportation reporter Jordan Castro.
we might want to do that so that you can have that camera working and then a speaker. Alright, I gave you a speaker.
Board members have not returned calls from
Alright, so other people can hear?
Metro Transit Police and
Yeah,
county
okay.
agencies didn't investigate or properly document thousands of crimes.
Yeah, so
These
there's
unvetted fraud schemes where Metro
the
workers
speaker
stole
would
gas.
be.
And another one where workers swindled the transit agency out of $300,000 worth of things offices to deliver. Even
That doesn't belong here.
$400,000 on a perpetually broken self-cleaning toilet at the Huntington station. The board is voting Thursday to appoint a deputy to take over while they search for a permanent
Special
replacement
Christian speaker.
for WAMU, I'm Jordan Pascal. Time now for a closer look at the weather forecast with Washington Post meteorologist Jason Samek.
It wasn't like Monday, summer-like weather, but today